we start out so innocent, and then so many people get warped by things that are not their fault. And I know we still have choices and we're responsible for those choices, but I do think that there are a lot of more reasons to believe that there's a higher power than reasons to believe there isn't.
This is the Humans of Gaming podcast, an open and honest conversation about games, life, and belief.
Hello and welcome to Humans of Gaming. I'm Drew Dixon. I am the Chief Content Nerd at Love Thy Nerd, and I'm joined by Chris Gwaltney. Hey, Chris.
Hey, I am co-host, cohort, sidekick, really, for this podcast, and I am the Chief Executive Nerd for Love Thy Nerd. And yeah, welcome to Humans of Gaming. This is where we have folks on that, you know, contribute to the games industry in some way, whether that's video games or board games, content creators, streamers, developers, publishers, and we just want to get to know them as people. You know, we've seen this trend in games culture of kind of an entitlement, like the, you know, developers or games people owe us something, and kind of tends to lend itself to us dehumanizing people. And so we wanted to do this show to kind of say like, hey, these people have dreams and hopes and fears and desires and everything just like you, and they're humans too. So,
and just to add to that, it's also like one of the goals of this podcast is just to highlight how interesting people who make games are. Like, I think games are beautiful and fascinating and weird and challenging and have so much to offer those who play them. And so like connecting with the people who build them and create them and sweat to put them out is pretty cool, because I mean, they're just fascinating things. So what we found is the people who make them tend to be really fascinating, interesting people.
Yeah, that's a great point. And we can talk more about why we do this show. Another reason is I personally have learned a lot, and Drew, I'm sure you have too, on, you know, because a lot of times in these episodes, we talk to people about religion or like their, you know, spiritual beliefs or lack thereof. And it's really helped me personally. And I've heard from listeners of the show that it is possible to have conversations with people that believe differently than you and not get ragey and salty and mad about it.
Yeah.
And that's another goal, is to be able to have those kinds of conversations and hear things differently.
And I imagine there's people who, like, we get into this a little bit on this particular episode. There's probably people who listen to some of this episode and some of the episodes that we put out and go like, why aren't you like correcting that person about their theology that I think is wrong or whatever? Mm-hmm. Like, there's a place for going like, hey, I think you're wrong about this and let's talk about it. But this podcast is not really that place for it. But what I hope we are modeling here a little bit is just like listening to other people. I think it's a really important thing to do in our day and age. I mean, we've just gone through some pretty rocky, like 2020 in particular was a pretty rocky year for a lot of people, to put it mildly. And one of the really valuable things I think we could all learn in this like highly divisive day and age we have is just to learn how to listen to each other, mm-hmm. and to know like you don't have to get your 2 cents in all the time like that. We're really big on relationships at Love Thy Nerd. We're getting into the weeds here a little bit, but we're really big on building relationships with people. And so when you have a relationship, you don't have to get your 2 cents in every conversation. Like, that can come later if you want, you know?
Word.
So
what I never want to happen, and dear listeners, you can always tell us if this happens. I don't ever want these shows to be more Drew and I talking and less of a guest talking. Like, if we're truly modeling what we're talking about, 80-90% of the talking should be the person that we're asking the questions of. So hopefully that's the case. But anyway, for this show, it was a really good chat with Liberty. Is it Kifer?
I think so.
We never actually asked her. I didn't anyway, how to pronounce her last name.
I think I introduced her as Liberty Kifer, I'm pretty sure, and she didn't correct us. So, okay. But yeah, we'll keep this in there, and then she can message us and be like, why did you get my name wrong? Yeah. I thought we were friends. That's what she'll say.
I know. Yeah, we bonded over all kinds of things like Montana and bears and hell and everything else. So, it was a really cool chat. If any of those things interest you, she made a game And that's actually a really cool story because it's kind of a, I don't know, rags to riches isn't the right way to say it.
Yeah, it's not, hers is not the path that many people go on to make games.
Yeah.
So if you've been like toiling for years and years to make a game, this conversation is going to tick you off a little bit.
Yeah, it might. But she's so cool, man. Like, she's just very easy to talk to, and like opening up about a lot of things that, most people maybe wouldn't. And she's just very sincere and humble too, I think. Like, it was just really refreshing.
Yeah. And the only person we've ever talked to from Montana, because I think only like 3 people live there.
Yeah. Yep. I think you're right about that.
Actually, we know at least 5 that live there because her family. But
yeah. So yeah, it was a good chat, and hope you guys enjoy it. Make sure to find us on lovethynerd.com if you haven't already. We actually just got these new hoodies in. They're pretty cool. They're soft and feel nice, and they say Jesus loves you, nerd. So if you want to grab one of those, you can just go to our store, lovethynerd.com/store, and help us out. It helps us put on things like these podcasts and make more cool merch stuff. So
yeah, the new hoodie says Jesus loves you, nerd. So it's got a cool, like, fun message. I like that message anyway.
And you'll get so many good looks from people when you're out and about.
Yeah. And because it almost sounds in a way like you're saying something really nice and affirming, but then also it almost sounds like an insult.
Yeah, it's borderline. So that's my sweet spot, man. You just keep people guessing.
Keep people guessing. That's right. I love it, though. I mean, I'm a little bit biased, but I'm not kidding when I say it's the most comfortable hoodie that I own.
They feel very nice. I wear it almost every day.
Yeah, you should wash it sometimes, though.
Don't tell me what to do. Hey, enjoy this chat with Liberty.
Hey, Liberty, how are you?
Doing pretty well. How are you?
Doing good. So you're in the great state of Montana, we discovered, and what's that like? What's life like in Montana?
Well, it's kind of like other places, but with less people and more cows.
Yeah.
Great.
So how long have you been in what brought you to Montana? I don't meet many people from Montana.
I actually grew up here, and then my husband and I actually met in the town that we're living in now, or living right outside of now. And then we've moved away and come back, and moved away and come back, often for his job. He's a software developer. And yeah, we just finally moved back and actually bought a place for the first time. So we're kind of putting down roots now, and it's really nice.
Oh, you're like full-fledged grown-ups. Yeah, what was that like buying a house during all this pandemic stuff? Or how has that affected being, Montana?
It's actually made the COVID situation a lot nicer for us, in that we are living on like 20 acres of woods up on the mountain, and we only go to town like once a week, and when we do, it's a town of 500 people, so we know everybody, and it just makes it feel a lot more normal and a lot less scary, I guess. I mean, you're never worried about like really weird stuff happening.
Do you like living in a town where you kind of know, or close, I guess you're not actually in the town, but close to a town, the town that you identify with being a town of like 500 people where you know everybody and everybody knows you?
Yeah, I think, like I said, we moved away a lot of times. So we have had our struggles in the past of just being content, and we were both like travelers, and so we wanted to go see what else was out there. But we always kind of feel called back here, because I think what's great about a town that small is that you have to really want to live here to live here. So it attracts like a very unique kind of person who is willing to do without certain things in order to have the kind of lifestyle that you have here. And I don't know, I guess I'm one of those people that really, really likes being here.
I can see that. Like, it's interesting, my wife and I have lived in Nashville, my family, for, I guess, like over 6 years now. I'm trying to do the math, but that's boring, so I'm not going to.
No, please run us through it in painstaking detail.
Okay,
Grandpa, please.
No, but we were talking. We moved from before moving here. We lived in a smaller town, like not 500 people, but a town of like, I don't know, 25 or 30,000 people. So a lot smaller, and it had that kind of feel where you just we felt very connected to the community, and like we knew everybody knew us, but we kind of didn't like there were things we really liked about that. We really loved some of the community that we built there, but it's just frustrating all the things you can't do and all the opportunities that aren't really available to like your kids and stuff. And so but now we live in Nashville, and we're realizing like it's hard to build community here in a city this big with as much going on, and everybody's spread out so much. I don't know. I feel like we've struggled to build like close friendships in some ways.
That was definitely part of what kept bringing us back here, is we would come back to visit, and like you walk in to any business in town and they're all like, oh, you guys are back, you know, how have you been? And just kind of feeling like you actually matter, that your presence makes a difference where you're at, I think is really it's something I really missed when we lived over in Washington. And I think that, plus just it's probably the freest that I've ever felt being here. Everyone just kind of is very live and let live, and you know, you can walk into the grocery store in your pajamas and nobody is gonna look at you weird. It's just kind of very non-judgmental, very cozy place. Everywhere you go kind of feels like your living room.
Dude, I'm going to Montana.
Are you like close to the mountains and stuff? Are you in the mountains? What?
Yeah, we're kind of in
She said on a mountain, right? Like
kind of, yeah, we're kind of like, we're just up this little country road, kind of on the mountainside. So like our property, a lot of it is kind of sloping and it's all in the trees. So yeah, the only really big challenge that we've had so far is we do have black bears here. And
oh my gosh.
Of course we moved here kind of early, well, in August.
Which means you get bears?
Yes, we have bears, and we had bears in our front yard and on the porch, and you know, like pretty up close and personal.
Nope.
So,
what is? Are we talking black bears, grizzlies? What are we talking?
Bear, yeah,
both.
We were seeing like kind of juvenile black bear, not like big scary black bears, but
oh, okay, well, that makes it better. Not.
I think people like don't realize how terrifying a black bear can be huge. Like some people tend to think like, oh, grizzlies are the big ones, but like a black bear, a full-grown black bear is huge. Yeah,
they can get pretty big. The ones we have, I keep saying one or ones because we're not really sure. Like we can't tell them apart. So we might have just one that lives here, or we might have a couple.
Yeah, I saw the reason I was kind of going on about black bears. I've seen one up close, pretty like closer than I'd wanted to be. Like I was mountain biking in North Carolina.
Oh, that was recently, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was probably like a year ago. I turned a corner on the trail, and it was I think it was in the spring, so you know the leaves were out. When I couldn't see it until I came around the corner, and it was probably 30 yards away from me, and it was huge, and I just froze and was like, "What do I do?" But
he was probably thinking the same thing.
Thankfully, it just kept walking straight up the trail, and just didn't really even pay attention to me. So it just kept walking the opposite direction from me, and I turned, but it wasn't getting off the trail. So I was like, well, just guess I'll go back. I just turned around and left.
Yeah, they kind of don't want to confront you unless, I don't know, you give them a really good reason, or if you scare them or startle them, but they kind of want to leave you alone. Unfortunately, the bear, like in the fall, they get really hungry, and so we did have one bust into our chicken coop and killed 2 of our chickens. So that was a big bummer because the girls were pretty attached to them. But yeah, so we're learning some new stuff. We've never been this much in the wilderness before, so we're definitely excited about it, but learning.
Yeah.
What up, nerd? Thank you for listening to this podcast from the Love Thy Nerd podcast network. We hope you're enjoying it. But hey, did you know that Love Thy Nerd airs almost all of its podcasts first on LTN Radio? That's right. LTN Radio is your home for the best Christian rock, rap, pop, and indie music. And it's also the place to go to hear Love Thy Nerd's content before it reaches the podcast feed. In addition to that, Love Thy Nerd creates a lot of content that's exclusive to LTN Radio that you're missing out on. So go check out ltnonair.com and listen for yourself. You can also download the Live 365 app on your smartphone and search and favorite LTN Radio, or enable the LTN Radio skill on your Echo devices and simply ask Alexa to play Love Thy Nerd. Now let's get you back to that podcast.
Hey, so this is not, whether fortunate or not, this is not the Humans of Montana or Bears podcast. It's the Humans of Gaming podcast. And Liberty had made a game, and we wanted to talk about it and hear from you just kind of that experience and stuff. So
Yeah.
what'd you make?
I made a game called Crystallo. It's a solo / we found out it can also be cooperative kind of puzzle card game. And yeah, it was kind of designed on a lark for a contest and then ended up kind of taking on a life of its own after that.
Yeah, and I just saw the other day it's at Barnes & Noble now, right?
It is, yeah.
Man, congrats. That's huge.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I definitely never ever thought that would
It's like a 500-mile drive for you
Yeah.
to Barnes & Noble.
Yeah, where's your closest Barnes & Noble?
It's probably about an hour away. I plan to go down there, but it's actually sold out there, so I'm gonna have to wait. But I wanted to take my girls to go and see it on the shelves. But we have thankfully had a bunch of family and friends that have gone out and taken pictures with it in the wild, which has been really fun.
Oh, that's so cool, man.
That is cool. So what, you said it was kind of designed on a lark. Did you kind of feel like you stumbled into making games, or is this something that has always been like in the back of your mind, or how did you end up where you are now? I mean, is it something that you've considered before?
No. I wasn't even really a hobby gamer at all. It was like something that completely fell in my lap. I was like on a car trip with my kids, and we were playing one of our little like car games that we do, and we got bored with that, and we started working on inventing a new one, and then that was really fun. So we came home and we were like, how could we turn that into a game we could play with our family and other friends? And I realized, well, I just was starting to learn Illustrator, so I could probably throw together some cards. And so we did that, and I was like, wow, this game is pretty fun. Maybe we should learn about Kickstarter, and maybe we could do a little project and do it as a homeschooling kind of exercise. And as I was doing all that research, I was hanging out on Board Game Geek, and there was a contest for a solo print and play game, which I didn't know about print and play games. I didn't know that was a thing, and I also didn't know solitaire board games or tabletop games were a thing. So I was just fascinated, and I was like, well, that would be a really fun way to just try something different and get involved in the community a little bit. And yeah, I ended up kind of running with that game because it really seemed to be fun for a lot of people. And it did well in the contest, and that kind of gave me a little bit of street cred, I thought. So I decided to take that one to Kickstarter instead. Still just thinking it was going to be a very small, little one-off thing. And then it, kind of took off way more than I expected it would.
So tell us about the game. Like, what is it like, and kind of what do you hope people get out of their experience playing it?
Well, when I started working on it, I wanted something that was, I think the little notes that I had written to myself was I wanted it to be pretty. I wanted it to be puzzly, and I wanted it to be portable. Because I was thinking, if I was going to play a solo game...
Some great alliteration.
Yes, I know, right? That's very satisfying. Yeah, I was just thinking, like, if I was to play a solo game, I would want it to be kind of like the puzzle apps that I play on my phone, which is pretty much the only solo games that I knew anything about. So I was trying to kind of capture that experience, I guess. Something kind of like mellow and meditative and... with a strong sense of reward. So I think that was kind of where the gems and stuff came in. It has these really big, chunky, shiny gems. So when you complete a task, you get to pull one of the little gems off. And it's really like, has that dopamine thing that you get from one of those puzzle apps.
Yeah.
So I think that was kind of the experience that I was going for. And it was very rewarding to hear that people felt that way about it. So
tell us about what was the process like for you of getting it from like realizing you created something that people dig and are into, and then the process of actually like getting it published? I think I remember like seeing you. I think you had some, if I remember correctly, because we're friends on Facebook, it wasn't like a simple road for you. No. I think you hit some roadblocks and things. What was that like?
Yeah. So I don't want to go into too much detail because I'm kind of trying to leave drama behind me, but I will say I had a publisher and things were okay in the beginning and then kind of went south for reasons that partially had to do with me and partially had nothing to do with me. But yeah, so that just kind of fell apart and kind of happened in the middle of fulfilling our Kickstarter, which they had kind of been in charge of, because that was a large part of why I signed with the publisher, because I was very scared of doing the shipping logistics. And so I ended up needing a new publisher on very short notice. And thankfully, Deepwater Games stepped in and really impressed me. So I ended up signing the game with them, and they have now taken it to retail. So yeah, it was definitely not the simplest road, and we had a lot of issues with COVID and fulfillment. But it's finally fulfilled now, and it's in retail. So I'm trying to put all that behind me and hopefully look forward to seeing it continue.
Do you have, like, you going to keep doing it? Do you have more games that you want to make? Was this kind of a one-off, or?
Yeah, I definitely have other ideas, and I think the stress of certain situations that happened with this one kind of had me questioning whether I wanted to do it again. Kickstarter is amazing. I had a really awesome experience running the campaign, the campaign itself, and I love the community of that. The publishing side of it was really stressful, and I think I'm very wary now. But I think with enough time to like kind of process all of that, I think that I probably will end up trying it again, just because the experience of actually designing the game was probably, I like to tell people, it's probably the most lit up my brain has ever felt, in terms of like it uses so many different parts of your brain to like, it's hard to explain, but it's very, very exciting, and I like that part. So yeah, I'll probably do it again.
What's the reception been like of your game so far? What are people saying about it?
It's been way better than I ever hoped it would be. Notably, Tom Vassell, who is not a solo gamer and always makes a point of that, reviewed it and said it was excellent. So that was like peak moment for me, for sure. And not only that, but actually my favorite part of his review was just the fact that he had clearly played it like a lot of times. that made me really happy. Like, he didn't just play it once and then like he actually spent some time with it.
That's just wild. Like, what a crazy, like, I feel like I want to step back a little bit here, because you made up a game in your car to play with your kids. And like, now we're talking about how Tom Vassell has played that game and loved it. I mean, obviously there was a long journey from, you know, like long journey and lots of changes and different games, but like, that's what sparked things, you know, like that's what kind of started you on this journey. Like, that's just, I don't know, that's wild to me.
It is. It's crazy to think about. And actually the reason that we were playing those games in the car, and we were, I was trying to make that trip as fun as humanly possible, because it was our trip home from a vacation where we had rented an Airbnb and we were planning to, you know, go out, explore and have fun all week, and instead caught a horrible virus. And me and my middle daughter just threw up the entire week. We just sat in the Airbnb and just threw up the whole time. So yeah, I was like, well, we're going to at least have fun on this trip home. And so I like to think that bug that we caught is the whole reason that I ended up where I am now. Just crazy.
And now you're here on the world-renowned Humans of Gaming podcast.
I know.
You have arrived.
Basically Letterman, right? I mean...
Better, actually.
Betterman.
Good one. Thanks, Drew.
I like it. Okay. You're quick on your feet.
Yeah, I try. So do you, like, has this, because you weren't really a gamer, like, you weren't super into board games before making this game. So has the process of making this sort of like, do you feel like you've entered into that space now? Are you gaming a lot now? Has this changed your hobbies and things?
I mean, we're definitely playing more games as a family now than we ever did. I still don't feel like it's that much because we just have so much that we're doing right now. We actually also got a new puppy who is a Great Pyrenees. So she's almost 7 months old now, but she's already, like 75-pound dog. So we're training her, and then we have the new baby who's 4 months old, and we've got chickens, and it's just a lot. So, but yeah, we've been playing, we've actually been playing a lot of Welcome To, which is not a plug for Deepwater, but they did send it to us, and it's really good. So we like that one.
Just a coincidence, merely coincidence.
Yes.
What are there other like go-to games you guys are playing?
Yeah. So we really like, my girls really like Dixit a lot. I don't know if you played that. It's a good like family one.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah. Yep.
I like that it's creative, and it actually, we kind of have a spread of ages. So my oldest is 13, and then the next one's 11, and then the next one is 7. And so she has the shorter attention span. So games like that where, it's not super long turns and it's kind of, less about strategy. She really likes those a lot. So Dixit was a big hit. And my older kids and I and my husband all really enjoy The Captain is Dead because we're huge Star Trek nerds.
Oh, nice.
So that's been fun. But yeah, we honestly have like amassed a pretty good collection now of stuff that we haven't played. So I'm looking forward to doing more of that.
That's when you know you're like a true board gamer now, is when you have a bunch of games you haven't played. This just happened to me over Christmas because like we're on lockdown and I had like hernia surgery and all this stuff. So like I just haven't been able to play games with people. And now I have like 5 or 6 games in my collection that I haven't played. And I've always prided myself on being the person that didn't have unplayed games in their collection. And now I'm just a statistic.
I am finding that even though I don't know a lot about board games, although I've done a lot of research now, I guess just for research purposes, I do overlap a lot with like the board game community in terms of other stuff that I like. So like I grew up with all of the Nintendo games, and I'm really interested in a lot of shows and things like that people in the community also like. So I find at least I can still talk to people, and not just about my game, which would be really boring. Not that my game is boring. I'm just saying, if that's all I knew about, that would be not very fun.
Yeah, I find there's always a lot of overlap in nerd culture stuff, like it's rare in my experience to find somebody that's like, nope, I only do board games. Don't talk to me about any other kind of nerdy stuff. It's just, I only do board. Like, if you're a nerd, you're kind of a nerd and you like lots of different nerdy things, or at least a few different nerdy things,
It's Mo from the Back Row Morning Show, and I've got 5 random facts for you. When the show came to an end, the cast of Friends negotiated syndication rights for themselves, which means they receive a percentage of the revenue from reruns airing across all broadcasting companies. Since the much-loved TV show still pulls in around $1 billion in revenue, the cast all make close to $20 million a year for doing, well, nothing. Pluto was discovered on February 18, 1930. It is the farthest dwarf planet from the sun, requiring it to go a much farther distance than we are used to on Earth. It takes 248 Earth years for Pluto to complete one rotation of its own around the sun. This places Pluto's first birthday since its discovery on Monday, March 23rd, 2178. While sharks account for almost 53 bites per year, only one of those ends up being fatal. Cows, on the other hand, kill around 20 people per year. Cheetahs can't roar, but they can purr, meow, hiss, bark, and growl instead. And Resident Evil is one of the most successful video game franchises in history, having spawned dozens of sequels, movies, toys, books, and board games. The original Resident Evil PlayStation game holds the record for worst video game dialogue according to Guinness World Records Gamers Edition. For more fun facts and hilarious nonsense, tune in to the Back Row Morning Show Monday through Thursday at 7 a.m. and again at 9 a.m. Central here on LTN Radio.
So you grew up in Montana, in this same town that you're living now, right?
I live about an hour from where I grew up, so close enough that that's like where we go for grocery trips and stuff like that. But it's a bigger town, so, and when I say bigger, I think it's like 20,000 people. I don't know. It's about as big as they get.
They have like a
here.
Walmart.
Yeah, it's got a Target. It's got,
What was what did your parents do? What was your upbringing like?
My upbringing. Well, I was raised by a single mom. She was going to school to be a teacher, and my dad was a musician, and he ran off to Nashville.
Oh gosh!
Dang it, Drew! Come on, man.
Nashville is full of dads, I think.
Oh my gosh, that's a t-shirt.
That's the box quote for this podcast.
That's a t-shirt.
We have a good relationship now, but he, so he was off doing the music thing when I was little.
But y'all weren't close when you were younger?
No, I didn't. Actually, didn't hear from him until I was like 15. So, yeah.
Oh wow.
And he, sorry, that's really interesting to me. So he initiated that?
Yeah, it's kind of a complicated story, but he was with a woman who was kind of really not mentally well, and was very controlling and jealous, and so he kind of didn't contact us for a long time, I guess, partly because of that, but it's still kind of not a great excuse for all of the years. But he went through a lot, and so when he and I finally came to visit, I just kind of decided to let it go and try to have a relationship because, life is short, and just didn't see the benefit in being angry.
Okay, yeah, I was going to ask you how you arrived at that, because I know a lot of people really struggle to connect with a parent who is, checks out. But it sounds like you got to a place where you were willing to forgive. And how did you get there?
Yeah, so it's been a lot harder for my brother. My brother was 2 years older than me, and he kind of bore the brunt of, trying to be the man in the house, I think. And so he has still some more resentment about that. And I think probably
has more memories too.
He does, yeah. So he remembers more about my dad.
Of your younger days, Yeah.
Yeah. I really just didn't ever know any better. It was kind of just the way it always was. So I think on that level, I just wasn't really angry about it. And then when he contacted me, I was like flash in the pan, like really angry. Like, are you kidding me? But I got over it really quick. I think that's also just kind of my personality. I tend to not hold on to things, and never really been a grudge holder. And I don't know, like maybe to a fault, I'm very forgiving. So like he knows, and I know that it'll never be a relationship like it would have been. So we just kind of make the most of it. And he's more of like a friend, I guess. But yeah, he has a ton of regret. And I think that kind of softened me up to where I was like, well, he has to live with that and like what he missed out on. And I don't really need to like rub salt in the wound.
Did you grow up going to church or anything? Was religion a part of your upbringing?
Yeah. So like a lot of people in our area, I was raised Lutheran.
Was that's a big thing in Montana, or that part of Montana anyway?
So my mom's family on that side is Norwegian. And so the Norwegian like path is kind of like, it seems to me anyway, this is just anecdotal, but it seems like they go from Norway to Minnesota to Montana.
It's the Norwegian pilgrimage.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think they like to stay where it's mountainous because it's like more like home. I'm not sure. So yeah, I was raised in a Lutheran church, and it was very Norwegian. Like they had Lutefisk dinners, and which is like a really weird fish. I don't know. I just remember it smelled really bad. Norwegian food is not the best. I love my heritage, but
What
yeah.
is Norwegian food? Like,
Yeah, other than fish.
So my grandma used to make lefse, which is it's like a tortilla made of potatoes, and then you wrap up butter and sugar and cinnamon in it.
that sounds pretty good.
That sounds incredible.
But then she used to make something called rummagrit, which is kind of like a porridge with you put butter and cinnamon and sugar. This is kind of a theme.
I see. Yeah.
Dude, I'm about it, man.
Yeah, I'm Italian on my other side, and I definitely prefer Italian food.
So that was like, so you grew up going to a Lutheran church, and is that where you are now? You still Lutheran, or did you like, did you stick with it? Did you stick with the faith, or did you ever have a time when you like peace out? I can't do this anymore.
Yeah, so I had kind of an interesting path, I guess. I ended up applying for a scholarship to a boarding school when I was 14.
What motivated that? Were you like, I want to try something different and new, or did you want to get out of town for a while?
Yeah, so at the time we were living in a kind of a crappy, I don't know, that's not a good word, but I don't know, just not a very nice town in the middle of Montana, out in the windswept plains. So it was basically like North Dakota. Nothing against North Dakota, but it was just very flat and very windy and very cold all the time. And the school situation was less than excellent. And so there was this scholarship specifically for Montana kids. And the scholarship was for full room and board and tuition for 4 years, and then $15,000 a year for college for 4 years after that.
Dang, that's a nice scholarship.
Not a bad gig.
Yeah, it was significant. So I had watched like a video about it and seen the campus, which is beautiful. It's like 2,000 acres in New Hampshire. It's really, really gorgeous. I saw all the opportunities there, things that I basically said, all right, you can take Latin and play the harp. I'm in. So
As a 14-year-old.
Do you play the harp?
I did. I ended up taking Latin and playing Celtic harp. So yeah, I was like, even then, just very determined child, I guess. So where was I getting with that? Oh yeah, so there was a youth group, and I actually ended up being one of the heads of the youth group there my junior year, and it's a 2-year position, so it would have been for my junior and senior year. But by my senior year, I was really struggling with a lot of it. Specifically the idea of sin and the idea of hell, particularly as it applied to, say, someone who like grew up in a different religion and therefore like wouldn't be considered saved, and that like someone who's like born in a Muslim country. Those were questions that really bothered me and ate away at me, I guess. And so my senior year, my way of dealing with it was kind of just to not go to meetings, which is really passive and kind of cowardly. But
even though you were in like some sort of like elected, you said you were like head of the youth group for a 2-year term. They had a term limit even.
I know, it was terrible.
Hey, I did the same thing when I was about that age, so don't sweat it.
Really? Yeah, we had this really wonderful chaplain who was kind of like the faculty overseer for the group, and he was from Ghana, actually, of all places. He's a really cool guy, and he kind of like saw me on campus one day, because all the faculty lives on campus, like you can't escape them. Yeah, so he said, would you, I noticed you're not coming to meetings anymore. Is there something you want to talk about? And I said, well, yeah, I just can't really wrap my head around the idea of like a loving God who would punish someone to hell. and I just couldn't get around it. And he said, no, it sounds like you're having a crisis of faith. You should come down to my office. And I just never did. And he would just look at me like kind of sadly after that. And I was like, I'm sorry.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. So that was kind of where I like diverged, I guess. My brother is still really involved in the church, and he was a camp counselor at our Bible camp, which I still absolutely have the best memories of. It was on this huge lake down here. It's a really beautiful place. Yeah, it's kind of hard for me because like I would love to send my kids there, but I still have those like doubts and struggles about it. And
Yeah. So it's still that particular issue that you've never like resolved, I guess, or maybe you have resolved and it's just that you can't accept the idea of a loving God who would punish people for eternity.
yeah. I think maybe that's it. I think maybe that's the sticking point. And I know that's kind of a weird thing because I listen to a ton of true crime podcasts, and I know that there are like monstrous people. But I also have that side of me that's like, but how did they end up that way? Because they weren't born that way, I don't think. And like, I look at my kids and I'm like, we start out so innocent, and then so many people get warped by things that are not their fault. And I know we still have choices and we're responsible for those choices. But yeah, those are the kinds of things that I like really battle with. But I do definitely think that there are a lot of more reasons to believe that there's a higher power than reasons to believe there isn't, if that makes sense.
I don't think it's weird that I think most people, professing Christians or agnostic, whatever, like I think that's a big sticking point for lots of people. That one. It's certainly something that I give a lot of thought to, and I've come to my own kind of, I think, conclusions about it. But I think a lot of people probably just prefer not to think about it because it's too hard. And I think, if I'm sharing Chris's thoughts on it, like I think a lot of it is our own bad interpretations of biblical text. People aren't given the tools. They aren't taught how to read thousands-year-old text and how to interpret it well. And thankfully, I'm actually really glad in the last few years there's things like the Bible Project or there's other resources out there that are doing a much better job of like contextually understanding the Bible. Yeah, we still have a long way to go, I feel like. And so I totally get it. Like I don't think it's weird that that's something that has, hung you up.
The thing that bums me out about stories like yours, and I mean, it sounds like at least in your story you had a guy who was like, "Hey, let's talk about it." But I think a lot of times people bring up questions like that and then kind of feel like
shut down.
They're kind of made to feel, they're made to feel like they're in sin for struggling with these really difficult questions. I mean, that's a big, hairy issue, and like you're not the first person that's been really bothered by it. like people have been bothered by it for centuries, and there's lots of conversations that can be had around that issue. So yeah, we have a lot of people on this podcast who talk about walking away from the faith, and part of it was like that they had these big questions, these important questions that they didn't feel like the freedom to explore. But at least in your instance, there was like that dude, the chaplain, that was like, "Hey, let's chat about it."
Yeah. And my experiences, I would say like my personal experiences with religion and church and things like that have been really positive. My Lutheran church, I mean, the Lutheran, I always say it's like the really like laid back surfer version of Christianity as far as I can tell, because you have the pastor with his like chill robe with the little colorful thing on it, and he just kind of hangs out and talks to you, and there's no real fire and brimstone. It's very laid back, and it's very like peace and love and take care of each other. And like I said, Bible camp was an amazing experience. I had so much fun there. And, at the school, it was Episcopalian, so we had chapel every morning, but it was very, again, like very laid back. I don't know. It's not like there was ever one thing that happened to me that like traumatized me. Like, oh, someone made me feel horribly judged, or I never had anything like that. And even within my family, them being more religious was never an issue. They weren't like, you're living in sin, or.
Yeah, I was going to ask, after you kind of came to that decision or, left the youth group and that kind of stuff, like, was there any awkwardness with your mom or with your brother? Because I know you said they're still kind of in that Lutheran world, but it sounds like there wasn't really.
Yeah, no, not a lot. My brother and I had like one debate about it, I think, and then we just kind of realized like that wasn't going to pan out with our personalities, and we just like left it alone after that. But yeah, we still see each other all the time, and love each other's kid. It's just never really been an issue.
Oh, well, we actually have him here on the line right now, so I'm just kidding.
Oh right. My gosh, I didn't see it coming.
That's our version of the like Maury, like
we
the talk show, or Jerry Springer.
And
we're gonna bring your brother out.
Group, faculty advisor is here as well.
That's right. We got we got him live from Ghana. Your old chaplain on the line. Oh my gosh.
He's really disappointed that you never came and talked to him.
Oh
man. So you're married. How long have you been married?
Well, so again, that's kind of an interesting question. We're common law married. We actually have not ever had a wedding.
Oh, interesting. I think you're the first common law marriage person we've had on. So this is the first for us.
Congrats. Big accolades there. Congratulations.
We got a marriage license like many, many years ago when our first daughter was a baby. And then we just like forgot about it and it expired. And I mean, that's just how much we kind of cared about the legal aspect of it. It was never, I don't know, like we're kind of the opinion that the government doesn't need to be involved in our relationship. So I guess we just both kind of weren't that into it.
Not committed enough to fill out a form. To the idea anyway, not saying anything about your commitment to each other at all.
We actually have talked about having a wedding now that we have like property, because the wedding that I want is literally like a bonfire and a feast. That's all I want. And music. Bonfire, feast, music. And I want my family to like camp in the woods. So that's the dream.
And so you'll have 3 kids, is that right?
We have 4 kids. So yeah, we've been together since 2004. So I actually met my husband the day after I graduated and flew home from boarding school. And I met him in our town, this town that we live in now. So we have a lot of history here. And yeah, so we have 4 girls. Like I said, 13, 11, 7, and then our youngest is 4 months. So we just had the new one.
Did you always want to have a big family?
I did. When I was old enough to like accept that having babies is painful. When I was younger, I remember being like, no way, I'm never doing that. Like, that's never gonna happen, which is funny because then I ended up like having all of the babies at home with like completely unmedicated, which I never would have imagined that I would do that.
Respect.
It's actually because I'm like terrified of doctors. And so that worked out great.
So this is like a big question that could be answered in a lot of ways, I'm sure, but I'd be curious to hear like how being a mother has shaped you as a person.
It's probably the biggest aspect of my identity. If motherhood was one thing and board game designer was another, motherhood would be like 100 times larger, if that makes sense. I had this really distinct memory of when I won that scholarship to the boarding school, and my grandma, who was like a 1950s housewife, had been through that whole kind of feeling oppressed thing. And she asked me over lunch, she was like, well, where do you see yourself in 10 years? And I really hope that I end up with some property in Montana and I want to have some kids and like homeschool them and maybe have some animals. And she was just horrified. What a waste of your talents is what she said. And I've always thought about that. And I think I understand where she was coming from. I don't think it was like maliciously said at all.
Malicious or
No,
anything.
she just,
Yeah.
grew up in an era where like women were much more limited in what they could do. And she wanted me to have the freedom to do what I wanted to do. It just really shocked her that was what I wanted to do, I think. But my kids are honestly like the reason that I want to learn new things every day. They're the reason that I want to be a better person, because they look at me like I'm like a genius and a supermodel and like a saint, all these things. Like that's really how they treat me, and it makes me want to live up to that as much. Like I can never achieve that actual standard, but like it makes me want to do the things that will make me worthy of that kind of admiration. So,
Oh, that's so cool.
yeah, I can't imagine my life any other way.
I can definitely identify with that. It's I have 3 of my own and 3 kids, and they remind me constantly of how I'm not as good of a person as I would like to be. So, in a good way.
I'd be happy to help remind you of that too anytime.
Sweet. Yeah, let's do it. I need it. Well, Liberty, it's great talking to you. Is there like what if somebody wants to follow what you do, the work that you do? What's the best way to do that? Just like look up your game online, or do you do Twitter or anything that you would encourage people to like check out your work?
Yeah, so I haven't been very good about updating my social media as far as Twitter and Instagram goes, but you can follow me at Lightheart Games. And if I actually start working on anything new, that will actually change. So I will end up updating people on what I'm working on if and when I get around to doing that. And then, yeah, you can totally friend me up on Facebook. I'm always up for that. And that's probably the only place I really post anything right now.
And where can people go, other than Barnes & Noble, what would be the best place for people to buy Crystallo?
I know that it's in hobby distribution, but I don't actually know where.
So just type Crystallo into Google and go buy it somewhere.
And that's CRYSTALLO,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah.
So, yeah, go Google it and find it, or go to Barnes & Noble and see if it hasn't sold out in your Barnes & Noble, and go definitely check it out.
I'm trying to remember what the 3 Ps were. There was pretty, puzzly, and I can't remember the third one. Portable. All right, so if you want pretty, puzzly, and portable.
Yeah, so you can stick it in your backpack or your purse or whatever you use to tote things around. Yeah, there you go. Well, it's great hearing from you, Liberty, and hearing your story, and definitely encourage people to go check out your game, and hopefully maybe we can chat again sometime soon.
Yeah, thank you so much. It was great to meet you guys.